My name is Ann Gordon, Ann Gordon de Barrigón, and I'm originally from the Seattle area and grew up there, and I now live in Panama, spend a lot of time in the Embera Indian village, and actually married to an Embera Indian man. Now these people still live in traditional villages out in the jungle, and in my opinion, have the quality of life the rest of us are searching for. So I was really touched by how warm and open and friendly they were. And then, as fate would have it, I met one of the men and we are now married. So this is now my home and these people are my family. But one time there was a missionary group out here doing what missionaries do. And they were putting on some skits and songs, and I was sitting in the house with my mother and father-in-law and some of the family, and one of the ladies in the family says, we're watching this, and she says, "Hey Ann, do you go to church?" I said, "Well, no, I don't go to church very often." They said, "Well, do you believe in God?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do." I said, "But for me, church is out in the jungle, it's on the ocean, it's in the mountains. That's where I feel closest to God." And they all thought about that for a few minutes. And then they said, "Yeah, me too." So for me, it was really easy to move into this life here because just by who I am, it's very similar. Their belief system, their way of being. I've always been an outdoor person, climbing out of a hut to go to a latrine at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom is not a big deal for me. I don't need electricity. Bathing in the river at 6 a.m. is a really beautiful thing. I had wild animals. I had tiger, lion, cougar, big cats that I trained and took to schools. On July 8th, 1988, date I will never forget, I had a small film crew from Boeing coming out to film my tiger running through the tall grass. And it was on my property, and I had a couple people, volunteers, that were helping, and one staff member. And one of my volunteers, who was just holding up a piece of fencing to help corral the tiger, she broke 2 major rules when you work around a big cat. And that is, she turned her back, and then she tripped and fell down. And the tiger went over playfully, grabbed her by the back of the neck, and carried her off. And it's your worst nightmare when you own an animal like that. That is the absolute worst that can happen. And so my employee was the closest, and so she reacted right away, as she should, and she was trying to get the tiger off, but he just got more and more possessive. And I was at the camera thinking that was the most dangerous because we had a cameraman low. And so I ran over, and we always have a CO2 fire extinguisher with us because it's loud and it's cold and it's noisy, but it's not going to hurt anybody. So I sprayed that in the tiger's face, and he changed his mind completely. And he looked up at me and made this noise that tigers make when they're feeling friendly. It's kind of a hi, and he was seeking reassurance. So I walked up, put his chain leash on, and walked him away. So that was my worst nightmare come true. As a result of that, we took her to the hospital, the ambulance came. She survived, barely, just barely. I mean, he nicked her vertebral artery, and they had 7 minutes to reconnect, or that would have been it. So, horrifying experience. And when I got home from the hospital, I had every television station, every newspaper, radio, helicopters hovering over my property, the phone ringing nonstop, and I had to deal with that. So it was this huge shock and horrible. Interestingly enough, that night, when I finally got to sleep, I slept peacefully for the first time in years because the worst had happened. The nightmare and the fear of what could happen had already happened. So it couldn't get any worse. One day when it hit me, and it was, oh my God, that whole accident with the tiger happened for me when I realized there's a reason for everything. And then I finally put it all together and I went, oh my God, this is the reason for me was the huge slap in the face, wake up. And sometimes we humans are so stupid and so dense. And unfortunately, take something of that magnitude to say, this is not working. There's more to life than just, driving a car and working and earning money and going to a movie, taking a vacation. Because I never really thought much about God up until that point. When we're going to get really personal. I haven't said this publicly before. This stuff. A few years ago, I guess it's about 4 years ago now, at the height of tour season, it was actually January 1st, December, Christmas through April is our biggest time of year. Christmas through New Year's is the absolute busiest week for tours. And I got a phone call from this woman saying that she was my husband's girlfriend. I'm like, really? And I talked to her very calmly. And it didn't even sink in. And I was leaving. It was like 7:45 in the morning, and I had to leave in 15 minutes to go pick up a group of tourists. So I just kind of talked to her for a few minutes, and the things she made logically made sense. I'm like, okay. And then I went and did the tour. And then I just kind of, and I dealt with him, and turns out that it was true. And I dealt with that, but I kept working. Even though I was extremely upset, but I just kept working and working because I had to. And then about February, I just broke. I just couldn't deal with it. It was just horrifying. And I couldn't stop crying. I mean, one night I had a double tour where I had 2 tours booked, and I had to rent a car for the other tour guide. And we were at the car rental place, and then they didn't have the car I had reserved. And it just, like, something so silly just tipped me over, and I lost it, and I went outside, and I drove around the block sobbing uncontrollably. And I couldn't deal with it. And I just, what is this about? Why me? Why me? Because what we had, and with my husband, there was no sign. We were having a great time. There was nothing wrong in our relationship. So I couldn't, what is this about? And, I always envisioned myself, I'm sure as everybody does, I'm never going to have a divorce. It's all going to be great. There's never going to be any problems. And I said, what, I just got to get away. I cannot deal with him. I cannot deal with the tourists. I can't put on this happy face anymore. When they're all saying, oh, how did you come here? And, I have to tell them my story. Oh, yeah, I married one of them. Oh, yeah, you look so happy. And inside I'm screaming and miserable. But I figure I'm the best actor in the whole world because they never knew. So I had never been out to the Pearl Islands here. And I had a friend who had a bed and breakfast out there, and I booked a trip out there. And I went out, and I was just, this is, what am I going to do? And, I was like, I'm trying to draw on my beliefs, I'm trying to draw on my faith, and it's just not happening. Just not happening. And I wasn't gaining any comfort, I was just miserable, and didn't know what to do, where to go. The whole reason I'm here in Panama was to be with him. I changed my entire life to be here with him. And a couple days after I arrived, I hired a local fisherman. I said, let's go find the dolphins. And we just headed out. I didn't see any. And I'm just feeling this, the sadness. And I kept feeling it rise up. And I knew that to find the dolphins, and you're sad and upset, that's not how you find the dolphins. They're all about happy and joy. And I also knew not to fight the emotions. So I just let myself feel it. And just let it process. And, just, it went through. And I just felt it go through. And then after about 20 minutes, it's like, okay, I could breathe again. I'm starting to feel a little relief. And then I just started feeling gratitude for the ocean and for being on the ocean. Having grown up on boats, the ocean's so important to me. And I just feel so comfortable out there. So I just started feeling gratitude and sending love out to the ocean. And then about 5 minutes later, the boat captain says, whales! And as we got closer, there was 4 humpback whales and about 40 spotted dolphins all together. And we don't often find them together, sometimes, but not often. And so the dolphins came and rode in the bow and played around us for about 15, 20 minutes. And then I said to the captain, what do you think if I get in the water? He said, I don't care. So he stopped the boat and I slipped into the water and the dolphins are all around me and hearing their whistles and clicks, and it was like watching this amazing symphony with their movements and just the synchrony, and just incredible. And I didn't have any major revelation that day, at that moment. I didn't have any major telepathic communication from them, as some people do. Nothing. But it was just a beautiful thing. It was an amazing experience. And then I finally got back in the boat, and we headed back in, and that night, I'm sitting in my room, and I'm checking some emails, working on the computer, and all of a sudden I realized I'm happy. How did that happen? It's like, thank you, dolphins. Thank you, whales. And it's like, I had this inner knowing, everything's going to be fine. No matter what happens, I will be just fine. Doesn't matter what happens. We stay together, we don't stay together, whatever. It's all good. I'm fine. And we were able to work it out.
It's the women that dance?
Shaman?
And I think I have seen men.
The women dance, right?
Yes.
And men also.
Not in these dances, not in the shamanic dances, no.